Hi, you're on the Alice Reddit Stories channel. Subscribe to my channel as well as to my Facebook, the link is in the description. Enjoy watching. I, 27F, have been dating my boyfriend, 29M, for 8 months. This is his first relationship, and we were both virgins when we met. I only mention this to speak to the lack of experience in relationships on both sides. So I was on my boyfriend's phone because he'd asked me to place an order for some work boots for him. When I went to type the Amazon website address into Google, I accidentally clicked a different, previously searched link for a website called All Things Worn. This website is primarily geared for men or women to interact with women/men online in a sexual manner, and it usually involves satisfying a sexual kink. The link took me directly to a messaging page where I saw that he'd been sexting attractive women during the duration of our relationship and years previous to when we started dating. None of the girls looked like me except one. Most of them were a different skin color from my own, and thin. I have a pretty face, a lot of ass, hips, and curves. He'd only talked to 1 to 2 women on this website during the duration of our relationship, about 1 month and 5 months ago. The bulk of their conversations consisted of him describing a specific fantasy where she dominated him in some way, and it also involved a foot fetish element. No nudes. I never knew that he had any of these kinks, up until this moment. He'd placed over 80 orders for videos, women's underwear, vacuum-sealed masks that women have worn on their feet, women's trash, the list goes on. These women were similar to porn stars, not average women, so there was no option or intention to meet up with them in person. He had some pending orders that he'd place while we were dating, but he never fully went through with purchasing this sexual paraphernalia while we were dating. He had it lined up ready to be purchased in his cart, like an alcoholic in recovery would have an unopened bottle of wine stashed in a hidden drawer, allowing for easy access just in case he needed a fix. I was completely blindsided when I found all of this out. I'm an intelligent woman, and I'm a perceptive woman, and I never saw this coming. I had feelings that he wasn't being completely open about his sexual desires, and I often prompted him about whether he had any specific kinks, but honestly, we just started having sex 4 months ago, we are both satisfied. He normally climaxes in less than a minute, and I figured he would open up to me with time. To me, his actions indicated a few things. 1, he was fundamentally ashamed and uncomfortable talking to me about his sexual kinks. He probably felt isolated as well, keeping this big secret from even his twin brother, who he talks to all day, every day. 2, he potentially had a compulsive addiction to this website, as indicated by the amount of orders he'd placed in the past. 3, he is capable of deceit, and he did break the trust/boundaries of our relationship and deceive me. From my experience with the opposite sex, I have come to the conclusion that every single guy has his own quirky, unique shit. I've known some guys who liked to sexualize the kids' cartoon character My Little Pony, and they called themselves bronies. I've known guys with extensive porn collections where they kept thousands of pornographic pics on their phone and talked about specific porn stars by name, like they were friends with them. I knew a guy who kept all their sexting nudes, hundreds, that they had received from different girls over the years in a tiny folder that looked like an app of their phone. I once refused to sleep with a guy, and a few weeks later, he asked me to watch him climax on a picture of me that he'd printed out with that intention in mind. He was trying to simulate the act of having sex with me. He called the picture a tribute. My boyfriend had been single for 29 years. Of course he was into some quirky shit to satisfy his own sexual urges/fantasies. My point is, guys can be into quirky sex stuff, and every guy has his own iteration of weird shit, so I wasn't surprised that my boyfriend had a kink/foot fetish, but I was surprised by the deceit and the fact that he hid his online activities from me. To put things in perspective, my boyfriend is a very kind, attentive guy. He loves me, and he shows me that he loves me every day just by doing little things. He'll come home after working a long 10-hour day on random days, and I've found that he's bought me a little stuffed animal, the ones I think are so cute, just because. He's caring every day. For example, if I'm preparing to take a bag of trash outside to the big garbage can at night, He'll tell me to leave it for him to take, because it's too cold and dark for me to be going out there by myself. I started studying for a major graduate school exam and he bought me all of my study material, pens, paper, markers, binders that I needed for my studies, in an effort to support me. I support him in his fitness goals, and in his quirky hobbies, extensively. I attend weekly 5-hour MTG card gaming sessions with him to support his hobbies. He's also really into online reality gaming, so I've played some online games with him. We both do a lot to show that we care for each other. The situation also made me question what I am doing wrong and what actions of my own are helping to create an environment where he doesn't feel comfortable telling me about his kinks. Don't forget to support my channel by subscribing, thank you. We had a really open and honest conversation about it. I tried not to come from a place of judgment, but rather acceptance, and we talked about integrating his kinks into our sex life. He got emotional and dropped a couple tears when he talked about how he's never told anyone about this kink or his online practices, and he looked like a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He responded really positively to me accepting him and his kinks, and he felt prompted to show me the sexual items that he had ordered in the past from that website. Some of the packages weren't even open. And now, a couple weeks later, he started integrating me into his fantasies and texting me the kinky stories he used to text these women online. However, I expressed to him that I was deeply hurt by him breaching my trust and talking to these women online, and hiding his behavior from me, like he was living a double life. I have trust issues from having an absent father for most of my life, and when he was around her was verbally abusive, and physically beat whatever woman he was dating at the time. I was never safe with him. My point is, I genuinely don't know how to rebuild the trust in our relationship now that it's been broken. Before in our relationship, trust was just something we did effortlessly, like a verb, and now it feels labor-intensive. His actions have stirred up feelings of insecurity as to whether he finds me attractive, and it made me feel a bit insecure about the relationship, asking myself questions like, what else is he hiding or capable of hiding? I'm a pretty confident woman, and honestly, I've never felt these insecure feelings before. Can anyone give me any advice on how I should go about trusting him again, or let me know if I even should? I, 25F, have been head over heels for this guy Harry, 25M, since 8th grade, so since we were around 13. I thought he was absolutely perfect from the day I met him, and honestly I still do today. He's smart, witty, charismatic, popular, we share the same interests, and he's one of the best artists I've ever seen. Knowing he was totally out of my league, I rarely tried talking to him and would instead watch him and even follow him in school from afar. It was very creepy, I fully admit. I had just entered puberty and had no idea how to handle these new feelings, so I chose the worst ways to display them. Eventually, pretty much, the entire school knew I had a crush on him. Harry obviously found out and gently turned me down early 9th grade. I was heartbroken, but I expected it. I was a creep. I was content on never encountering Harry again, despite my burning passion for him, but some bizarre events and behaviors from Harry followed the rejection. Later in 9th grade, he got my number, don't remember how, and started texting me almost like he was interested in me. We'd talk about our shared interests and would compliment me on my drawings, for example. Eventually, he confided that an aspect of myself fits a fetish he was exploring, and asked me for pictures of that area. Me being smitten, I obliged. Pretty soon after that our conversations got shorter, and he ghosted me. He'd briefly meet my gaze in the hallways and say hi to me in class here and there, but that was it for communication. Later on in high school, I still had deep feelings for Harry, but I grew to realize that being a weirdo is not the way to win a guy's heart, so I backed off and wouldn't try to get closer to him. Oddly enough, he added and started messaging me on Facebook out of the blue on a regular basis. Sometimes to talk about interests, other times to ask me for advice on asking out the most popular girl in school. Not sure why he went to me for that, but I helped him because I wanted him to be happy. Eventually, again, the conversations got shorter and he ghosted. No communication other than catching looks from afar. During college I matured, dated some guys, and didn't really think much about Harry. I still had a high opinion of him but accepted that he was gone and moved on. A few years ago, he comes back again out of nowhere through LinkedIn, asking how I was, if I was still drawing, seeming genuinely interested in my life. Don't forget to support my channel by subscribing, thank you. I felt guilty about how creepy I was toward him in school, so I apologized. He forgave me, and apologized himself for asking for fetish pictures. I showed him some doodles, he really liked them. We would talk about interests again. I stayed on my best behavior and never flirted. Maybe he was starting to like me now. Before I could relish the thought, he was gone again. Years go by without thinking much of Harry, until a few weeks ago. He sends me a request on Snapchat. Struck by a bolt of lightning, I accept and he starts talking to me again. More interests, lots of catching up. He is actively engaged in our conversations and we'd talk late into the night. Tons of compliments from him, deep emotional topics. As much as my brain pleaded no, my heart sparked that flame again. A week ago, he had a confession. He didn't understand his own feelings back in school and always thought I was fascinating, charming, clever, and attractive. Just like that I was back in love. He was now flirting with me and said he wanted to meet up sometime, and then asked for fetish pictures days later. I fell back into old habits and obliged. Sure enough, our conversations got shorter, and the past few days I haven't heard much from him. I'm probably just dumb, but I'd like to think Harry likes me for more than his fetish. He didn't mention it every time he came back, and it would take weeks of talking before bringing it up the times he did. It's always the same pattern with him. Come back, build me up, I start to think I have a chance, conversations shorten, ghost. Why does he keep coming back every few years like clockwork, especially if he truly doesn't like me that way? My friends all agree that he only sees me as a last resort option and an ego booster. I'm thinking of finally putting my foot down, confronting him, and asking him what the hell his deal is, but I don't want to lose him for good in case one day he does return real feelings for me. There's just nobody more amazing than him, as naive and blind as that sounds. What is going on in his head? What should I do? Thank you, and I'll answer any questions you may have. TLDR, have a huge decade-plus long crush on guy who turned me down, but randomly pops back up into my life every few years, butters me up, makes me think there's a chance at a relationship, and eventually ghosts me. I want to end this cycle, but don't know the best way to do it. We started being friends at age December 13th. So I prefer not to lose her over this, but something has recently been really bothering me and straining our friendship. My friend got really into the fat acceptance movement in the past year and stopped talking about it. She was always on the chubbier side, I'd say overweight, but not morbidly obese, and I was always the sportier type, and up until recently this was never an issue in our friendship. Since she got into this FA ideology, she cannot stop viewing everything through a FA lens. I'll give some examples. We go shopping and she will complain that clothes are only made for my body type and that she will never look cute in anything because clothes are just not made for her. We go out for a coffee and she will tell me that I am fat shaming her if I don't also take a slice of cake. Even though I just don't want one. I don't really like sweets. The biggest issue arose with my recent pregnancy. I obviously needed some bigger pants, and she tried to shame me for buying clothes that were made for overweight people. It got even worse when I told her that I couldn't eat sweets/carbs because I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes, and she said that was just an excuse to fat shame her and make her feel guilty. I tried talking to her about this, saying that I really enjoyed our friendship before she started bringing up Boda size at every damn occasion, and that I just don't know what to say anymore as to not offend her. I feel pressured into eating enormous amounts of sweets when I am with her, just so she won't feel bad about herself. Her response was that I will never know the struggles of fat people and that her struggles are just uncomfortable to listen to because of my internalized fat phobia/thin privilege, as if I was somehow trying to silence her on purpose. What to do? Obviously I am now putting my health and that of my baby first, so I won't be eating anything that could cause us any harm, especially with the pregnancy diabetes. but I really don't want to lose a friend I've had for half of my life to something as petty as this. I never cared that she was a little chubbier and we used to have so many topics to talk about that didn't involve bota size. Will we ever be able to go back to that? Can I somehow help her out of those overwhelmingly negative thoughts? TLDR, a good friend has turned into a fat activist and tries to pressure me into unhealthy lifestyle choices, or I am being fat phobic. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel. There are many interesting articles ahead.